All right, let's jump right in. Today we're exploring a topic that touches millions of lives, but, often stays in the shadows, especially in certain parts of the world. We're going to look at what it really takes to build an inclusive future for students with dyslexia in Vietnam, and how we can turn those challenges into incredible opportunities.
So, just how big of an issue are we talking about? Well, start with this number, 10%. That's roughly how much of the global population is affected by dyslexia. This isn't some niche issue. It's a huge part of the human experience, found in every single country, culture, and classroom, including, of course, Vietnam.
Okay, so what is dyslexia? Let's get this crystal clear right from the start. Dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty. It is not a sign of low intelligence, and it's definitely not laziness. It's simply about the brain processing written language in a different way. Think of it as a unique cognitive style, one that has its own set of challenges, for sure, but also its own amazing strengths.
So, with that foundation, let's zoom in on Vietnam, a place where that cultural emphasis on academic achievement and literacy makes this a really, really important social issue.
Now, this is really interesting. When you look at the numbers for Vietnam, you see this huge range, anywhere from about 7% to maybe over 15%. And that big gap, that alone tells you a story. It screams that we need more focused local research. But even if you take the low end, we are still talking about millions of students.
So you gotta ask, right? Why does this learning difficulty so often fly under the radar? Well, the reasons are pretty systemic. It all starts at the top. Dyslexia isn't even specified in the national disability law. And that creates this cascade effect, right? You get a lack of local research, no standard way to assess kids, and the support in schools ends up being really patchy and inconsistent. The entire infrastructure needed to find and help these kids is basically still under construction.
All right, we've talked about the system, but what does this actually feel like for a student who's trying to navigate it all? Let's get personal for a minute and talk about the impact.
For a student, getting a diagnosis can be a real double-edged sword. Just imagine the incredible relief of finally having an explanation for why you're struggling, knowing it's not because you aren't smart or you're not trying. But then, that relief often comes with a huge dose of anxiety, the fear of being labeled, of being seen as different, especially in a culture that places a high value on fitting in.
And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. This makes it so clear that we're not just talking about grades. Not at all. When you're struggling day in and day out without knowing why, it can absolutely crush a child's self-esteem and have a really lasting impact on their mental health.
And here's where the culture really comes into play. When literacy is put on such a high pedestal, it's so easy for everyone, teachers, parents, even the students themselves, to mistake the signs of dyslexia for a lack of effort. It creates this vicious cycle of frustration and pressure, and that just doesn't help anyone.
So, to really get a handle on where Vietnam stands, it helps to look around, How are its neighbors in the region tackling this? This comparison is really revealing, showing both the gaps and the potential ways forward.
And when you put Vietnam side by side with its neighbors, wow, the picture becomes incredibly clear. You've got Singapore with a super robust dyslexia association that's backed by the government. Malaysia has a national inclusive education program. Thailand is using proven methods like Orton Gillingham. And then you look at Vietnam, and the official word is still in developing stages. Now, that's not a knock. It's a call to action. It shows that successful models are literally right next door.
Okay, so we've laid out the challenges. Let's not get bogged down there. The really exciting part is the path forward. And the good news is, the research gives us a clear blueprint for how to empower these students.
It really comes down to these 4 key pillars, and you'll see how they all lock together. First, you've got to have official recognition in the law. That's step 1. That then allows for widespread screening in schools to catch it early. Then, to make that screening worth anything, you need to train teachers so they know what to do. And finally, those trained teachers need ongoing support systems to really be effective. See, each step builds on the last. It's a whole package.
So what does this look like on the ground, in the classroom? Well, it means using multi-sensory teaching that engages sight, sound, and touch. It means bringing in assistive tech, and it means providing really simple accommodations like a little extra time on tests. These aren't crazy, radical ideas. They're proven, practical strategies that, by the way, help all students learn better.
And this is so important. This can't just be a school thing. The changes can't stop at the classroom door. We're talking about changing hearts and minds out in the community through awareness campaigns that bust the myths and get everyone engaged in building a real network of support for these kids and their families.
So when you pull back and look at the big picture, what are we really aiming for? What's the end game here?
It's about building a future where the educational system is designed to unlock the potential inside every single student, no matter how their brain is wired.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The vision isn't just about managing a challenge. It's about completely flipping the script. Moving from seeing dyslexia as a deficit to actually celebrating the unique abilities, the creativity, and the out-of-the-box thinking that so often comes with it. And that really leaves us with one big question to chew on. At the end of the day, an inclusive education system doesn't just help the students with learning difficulties, it lifts everyone up. It makes our communities more creative, more empathetic, more resilient. So we have to ask ourselves, what incredible talent, what game-changing innovation, what human potential are we losing when our systems fail to see, support, and celebrate every single kind of mind?